From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Hundreds of thousands of votes still being counted in Arizona's pivotal Senate race between Martha McSally and Kyrsten Sinema. We delve into the ballot sorting process.
And Arizona is clear of chronic wasting disease. Advice from the Arizona Game and Fish Department on how you can help keep it that way.
Plus, we speak to Arizona veterans remembering their time in the Korean War during a special honor flight to the nation's capital.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Andre Sims.
And I'm Gabriela Becerra. Thank you for joining us. A settlement reached in the GOP lawsuit over the counting of early ballots dropped off on Election Day. All 15 counties will now be allowed to go through the process to confirm with voters if there are signature discrepancies on the ballots. Results currently put Kyrsten Sinema ahead of the Senate race by 8,800 votes, according to the Arizona Secretary of State. Tanaya Williamson reports why some say the lawsuit filed by Republican parties in several counties is simply poor timing.
This is a suit that's based on the procedures that the county uses, and this lawsuit could have been brought literally 6 months ago.
The initial hearing for the lawsuit resulted in a rejection of Republican requests to separate mail ballots that had already been cured by the county recorder's office. The judge ruled that it was too soon to require Maricopa and other counties to stop contacting voters to verify signatures on mail ballots.
I find it a little, disingenuous, the fact that this lawsuit has been filed, because it does seem designed to disenfranchise voters. The timing is really suspect in my opinion, just because of the fact that we want to count votes, not stop counting votes.
Despite lawsuits filed, both candidates are optimistic that they will take the race. Kyrsten Sinema's campaign manager released a statement that says in part, "We're confident that trends will continue in Kyrsten's direction and that she will be the next U.S. Senator." While Martha McSally's campaign CEO said in part, "With 500,000 ballots left to count, we remain confident that as votes continue to come in from counties across the state, Martha McSally will be elected Arizona's next senator." In downtown Phoenix, Tanaya Williamson, Cronkite News.
You can track our continuing election coverage on cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
The Trump administration announced new immigration rules that give the president authority to deny asylum to virtually any immigrant who crosses the border illegally, invoking national security powers meant to protect the United States from threats from abroad. Although officials didn't specify who will be affected, it's expected Trump intends to deny asylum to members of Central American nations, some of whom are marching towards the United States in a caravan. The changes also effectively close the option of asylum to those who do not enter the country legally at an official port of entry.
This is going to be a problem, and I already see it being a problem. At this moment, people are being turned away at the port of entry because they don't have the space or the room, etc. So you have asylum seekers waiting for weeks to be able to come into the country.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristen Nielsen says too many, quote, meritless asylum claims are delaying and preventing those deserving asylum from being granted protection.
An anti-immigrant activist has filed a lawsuit challenging the citizenship of Arizona State Representative-elect Raquel Teran, while citing no evidence. Teran addressed the allegations earlier today.
I'm a proud U.S. citizen. I was born in Douglas, Arizona. The courts know it. I have gone through this before. I had to prove it before to the same person, to Alice Navoa, and she knows it because she was also at the courts.
Teran is set to appear in court next week.
Arizona has kept a neurological disease that kills deer and elk out of the state for decades. Yet, chronic wasting disease is prevalent in neighboring states. Reporter Jordan Daphnis explains how Arizona has held the disease at bay.
In Arizona, there are no cases of chronic wasting disease, and Ann Justice Allen wants to keep it that way.
It's a big challenge. It may be an impossible challenge because states that didn't think that they were going to get it have it now, like Montana.
Justice Allen is a veterinarian for the Arizona Game and Fish Department. This month, she's at a youth hunting camp in Greer to test deer and elk for chronic wasting disease.
It affects their brain and their nervous system, so we start seeing abnormal behavior. The animals are somewhat dull and less responsive.
Hunters play a critical role in the Arizona Game and Fish Department's ability to test deer and elk for chronic wasting disease. The animal has to be deceased before they're able to gather samples such as these lymph nodes. 14-year-old hunter Gage Martinez killed one of the elk.
I was so excited today, my hand was shaking, so yeah, it was pretty weird.
Then Justice Allen and her team cut out the lymph nodes from Martinez's elk. The nodes will be sent to a lab for testing. They are also helping hunters like Martinez understand what chronic wasting disease is.
Talking to hunters, letting them know what we're doing out here, why it's important that we're doing the monitoring project and taking the samples.
So far, Arizona's efforts to test and educate hunters is working, but chronic wasting disease is a problem in nearby states like Colorado.
Last year we did some mandatory sampling that really helped us get a better picture of the prevalence of CWD in Colorado.
Travis Duncan says more than half of the deer herds in his state have chronic wasting disease. He says it spreads quickly when deer are in close contact.
Things like feeding deer is a really good way to spread CWD because it brings a lot of deer all into one area, whereas normally they'd be more spread out.
There is no cure for chronic wasting disease, so Duncan says surveillance and monitoring are key until science can catch up. Here in Arizona, the Game and Fish Department continues to test samples with the help of hunters to ensure there is no trace of the disease.
The hunters value it. They can be assured that the animals here are healthy and that to have them having elk for dinner, venison for dinner is going to be something that's safe for their family and it's not going to be a problem.
Sampling lymph nodes is voluntary for hunters. Justice Allen hopes this testing will keep the disease out of the state. In Greer, Jordan Daphnis, Cronkite News.
Hunters can take deer and elk heads to any Arizona Game and Fish Department location. The department plans to test more than 1,000 animals for chronic wasting disease this season.
2 California wildfires continue to grow. Evacuation orders are in effect across Ventura County and into Malibu. And in Northern California, the Camp Fire has destroyed entire towns.
I mean, when I came back this morning to look at everything, I mean, we're amazed how it can get one house, skip ours, go to another. It's just completely random.
Fire officials say the Santa Ana winds have been blowing embers into populated areas. The town Thousand Oaks, where a bar shooting yesterday claimed at least 12 lives, has also been evacuated because of the fires. Fire officials say they have found at least 5 bodies in the fires so far.
It's getting cooler across Arizona.
Matt Kling is tracking our forecast.
That's right, guys. It's going to remain dry throughout the next week. As you can see here on our Futurecast, absolutely no cloud cover throughout the weekend, throughout the state. If you're heading to see some high school football tonight, temperatures will start out in the 70s and dip down into the 60s here in the valley. Maybe bring a sweatshirt if you'd like to remain a little bit warm. If you're heading to see ASU football tomorrow, a 12 noon kickoff, 73 degrees will be your temperature at the start of the game. The temps will go up into the upper 70s throughout the game. Bring some sunscreen as it will be bright and sunny at Sun Devil Stadium. 79 degrees will be your high temperature here in Phoenix tomorrow. Taking a look across the state, 56 in Cholo, 59 in Payson, 64 in Sedona, 53 in Flagstaff, and 56 up in Grand Canyon. Should be a great day to take a day trip. 76 degrees will be your high on Veterans Day on Sunday. Should be a nice day out at the NASCAR track. And the temperatures will remain in the low 70s for highs, but temperatures will be down in the 40s throughout the next week. From the Cronkite Weather Center, I'm Matt Kling.
Many refer to the Korean War as a forgotten one, and as its veterans age and pass away, those who served are determined to preserve their stories.
Washington Bureau reporter Lillian Donahue flew from Phoenix to the nation's capital with dozens of Korean War veterans on the final Arizona honor flight of the year.
This is me over here, the good-looking one.
Arizona has always been home for 89-year-old Pat Haggard. He went to school, met his wife, raised 3 kids, and became a grandparent in Phoenix.
And been in the valley my whole life.
But when he was 21 years old, he left Arizona to fight in a war thousands of miles away in Korea.
I was drafted along with 4 of my friends into the Army in January 13, 1951. I was toting a machine gun all through the rice paddies every night or 2 or 3 nights a week.
It's an experience that's taken him decades to finally share with a family who never even knew he carried the weight of a machine gun and a war all these years.
This was the first time I've thought of Korea in 15 years.
I've heard things today I've never heard.
Or where we fought most of the time.
One night remains seared into Pat's memory. His platoon was bogged down while pushing up the 38th parallel.
I think there were 17 or 18 of us of our platoon, which was probably 45, 50 men to start with. That was...
As Haggard unpacks his memories, he wants to make sure his story and those like him isn't forgotten. That's why he's saddling up the wheelchair, going coast to coast. And he's doing it with one of his closest friends, Bill Kinnerup. The two graduated high school together, went off to the war together, and now they're taking on the nation's capital together.
We're all just so happy to get it and to go with friends. You know, this is going to be much, much better.
Like something I never dreamed could happen. It's just like old home week to have him to be going with Pat.
The two are flying with nearly 40 other Korean War veterans and supporters on the final Arizona honor flight of the year. From Phoenix to the district, volunteers, guardians, and bystanders all taking pause to honor America's heroes.
Thank you, bud.
Arizona Honor Flight has taken 79 trips and over 2,000 World War II and Korean War veterans here to the nation's capital so that they can visit their own memorial. Now, for veterans and volunteers alike, it's an impact like no other.
This resets my whole life and puts in perspective what's important out there.
Hard time was patrolling.
The trip is a chance for every veteran to look back at the history they made, like Donald Bowles, a former Navy minesweeper who's searching for his ship.
That's the same ship that I was in Korea with. Isn't that something?
And Doyle Porter, a former Air Force pilot who finds his airplane etched into stone.
See, this is how they mounted the engine.
It's Haggard and Kinnerup's first time seeing the Korean War Memorial, a moment frozen in time and a way to look back at themselves almost 70 years ago.
This was every night. Like I say, these guys depict the raining weather and you wore your poncho. It's emotional, but it's something we dealt with at the time and proud of it.
Among all, there's one shared hope for their legacy, that the men and women of the Korean War are not forgotten.
Lest we forget why we have the great nation that we have. This is what makes us who we are today, is these people, and we need to not forget them.
Most of us can't forget it. I just hope that history doesn't leave it as the forgotten war and remember the job that was done then.
God shed his grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shore.
In Washington, Lillian Donahue, Cronkite News.
Ahead on Cronkite News, a look back on a record-breaking midterm election night.
We hear from dozens of our political leaders on what's next for Arizona and our country.
Right, we had 200%, 300%, and 400% increases in calls to our call center. Folks asking, where can I vote? How can I get my voter registration fixed, right? And we made those numbers available via social media, radio, and television. We got out there, we got in front of it, we helped people understand that there was an election coming, voter registration deadlines and stuff, and there were a lot of campaigns that did that as well. I think everybody who was interested in politics and elections worked together, and so there's a lot of reasons I think that people will tout, but we facilitated the biggest midterm in the history of Maricopa County, and I'm super proud of that.
Tell me about the efforts that have gone into this election.
Oh man, it has been absolutely incredible seeing the new investment and activation of volunteers, voters, candidates alike. Just this last weekend alone, we saw 4,000 individuals on the ground knocking doors to over a 250,000 people. We've made over 1 million calls this campaign cycle, and we're here listening to folks and hearing their stories about how motivated and excited they are to be.
We've seen a lot of cheers. What's been happening so far
far at the watch party?
Well, it's been a Republican night, quite frankly. Florida's going very well. I mean, it looks like we're going to have a Republican governor there and a Republican senator. It's close, but I know the voting in Florida, and what you get early is the East Coast, which tends to be Democratic. A little later, you get the Panhandle, which is Republican, and so it's going very well for DeSantis. I expect he's going to be the next governor of Florida. That's good. Indiana, very early, was very good. It was clear that was going to happen. North Dakota's coming along. Looks like they just called that. So that's a Republican. So we've gained 2 now in the Senate. That's very, very positive. So I think it's a great night for Republicans.
Nathan, can you tell me more about why you decided to get involved with our chapter?
Yeah, so back in 2012 when the Sandy Hook shooting happened, I was a little too young to really understand what was going on. But now that I look back on it, that was actually my brother's school. And when I look back on that and I realized what little action happened after that happened, and no one really talked about it 2 weeks after it happened, and that's an unreal tragedy that no one's even willing to talk about. And it just keeps happening over and over again. And then once Parkland happened, me with many others had finally had enough, and we decided to start something.
So I'm here with Kelly Ward. Kelly, can you tell me, you lost in a hard-fought race against Martha McSally, and now you're throwing your weight behind her to support her. Can you tell me why you're doing that?
Yeah, well, because we have to make America great again, and we have to have Republicans in office from the U.S. Senate to the House and up and down the ballot here in Arizona. And so we've got to get together, we've got to come together as a party to make sure that we can make that happen.
But now back to Kathy Hoffman, who is running for Superintendent of Public Instruction. Now, she told me that she wanted to run for office well before even the Red for Ed movement. Tell me about that.
I started my campaign over a year and a half ago when I watched the confirmation hearing for Betsy DeVos, and that's when I realized that we must have more educators running for office if we want to see any kind of benefit for our schools.
So I'm here with David Schweikert. He is running for re-election for District 6. Can you tell me what are some of the issues that you want to focus on once if you're re-elected?
Look, I'm blessed to be on the Ways and Means Committee. So we have jurisdiction on everything from tax to trade to Medicare, Social Security. So your plate is quite full. And the reality with 74 million baby boomers moving into retirement, we have a lot of retirement security type of issues, which are complicated and stunning amounts of money that we really need to step up and work on.
Jennifer, tell us why you decided to travel all the way back to Arizona for today.
Well, I came here with my 2 sons. I have 2 boys, Calvin, who's 16, and Jaden, who's 12, to really teach them about the importance of being responsibly and be responsible civically and to be civic-minded. And we really think it's super important to get people to go get out and vote for our Democrats in Arizona. So we want to come out here and support our candidates and really support the people that we want to vote for in the Senate and the House for Arizona.
I am here with Sam Darmo. Now, Sam, you are the chairman of the American Assyrian Republic Coalition of Arizona. You have a long name, and you actually also have a long history with the United States. You started out as an Assyrian refugee. Now, how has that shaped your opinion on immigration?
Well, in 1974, I was only 17 years old when I left Iraq, and I had to spend 4 years in 2 different countries until I was approved to come to the United States. This was the legal process. So that's why what I support is, this country is open to everyone, but everybody has to come in here legally.
I'm with Felicia Rodolini. She's the chairwoman of the Democratic Party in Arizona. We just found out via CNN that Ann Kirkpatrick has won her seat of the House of Representatives in District 2. And so it's looking like the Democrats may be able to win over the majority in the House of Representatives. What would that mean for Arizona?
Well, we are already picked up a seat. So right now it looks like the majority of congressional districts in Arizona are Democratic. And that means that we are going to have a greater influence in Congress. And my opinion, The Democrats are the ones speaking the values of Arizonans, regardless of party affiliation, and it means that more of the working class and everyday Arizonans are going to be represented in Congress.
One of my number one priorities is helping the people that live in my district, and I've told that to my staff. We've helped dozens of veterans, people with Social Security issues, Medicare issues, immigration issues, and I really think that is the most enjoyable part of my job. I also think Congress really needs to do immigration reform. We need to secure the border. We need to get rid of some of these immigration loopholes so that people can't just flood across our borders seeking asylum and we don't have enough courts to handle them. This is a problem that needs to be addressed, and I'm hoping that both Republicans and Democrats can now, after this election, get together and solve the problem.
So, January, how exactly do you plan on protecting the safety of families here in Arizona?
The Attorney General office has a lot of roles in the way that it does that. We have a criminal division where we can be assertive around domestic violence, around sexual assault, not necessarily prosecuting all those cases because they happen at the county attorneys, but leading culture change, being a part of training and prevention. Kids in the foster care system, we're involved with every single one of those cases. If someone is scammed, whether it's a one-off at a small level or whether it's widespread, we have the job of making sure that we're holding them accountable and standing up for the people of Arizona.
I'm so fortunate and blessed to have been raised here in Arizona, and I want to say my mom's here. Some of you may know my mom. There she is. She was born in the former Yugoslavia, lived through World War II. We got a lot of folks here from my church. And I will tell you what, when you're a first-generation American, you appreciate how great this country is and how fragile freedom and liberty is. And so we have an obligation to give back to this country. And we have an obligation to enforce the rule of law. That's what I've tried to do as the Attorney General. And one of the things I'm so thankful about tonight is my mother can now watch The Price is Right again. I don't know.
John Kavanaugh, now you have been in the legislature for 12 years. What do you think is the biggest takeaway relating to what's going on nowadays from your experience in the legislature?
Sure. I think this is one of the most exciting elections, other than the election of President Trump, in my lifetime. The country is highly polarized politically, and the voter turnout is massive. We're in a major battle ideologically about where this country is going, and I think this is a great night for Republicans. We didn't expect to make advances. This is a midterm election. President Obama, in his first midterm, lost 63 seats. We're keeping the Senate, and we're probably going to lose the federal House, but our losses are minimal, so I think things are going well for us. And at the state level, things also look good. We're going to keep the state House. We're going to keep the state Senate. Governor Ducey's way ahead, and some of the statewide offices are close. But overall, we're doing pretty good considering this is a midterm when Republicans, the out of power party, generally does bad.
I'm with Phoenix's Vice Mayor, Jim Waring. Can you tell me a little bit about, we've seen a lot of big movements hit the streets in Phoenix this year, the Red for Ed movement and the March for Our Lives movement. Can you tell why these issues are important to our state?
Well, I mean, anytime there's citizen activism, I think it's great for people to get involved. Whether it'll affect tonight's races, I don't know. We had a mayor's race tonight in Phoenix that had a pretty wide margin. Kate Geigo had a pretty sizable lead. Going forward, that would make the runoff, more likely to change control of the mayorship pretty dramatically from Thelda Williams' current lead to Kate Gallego. And so that's something that I'm watching very closely as vice mayor.
We're now going to head over with an update from candidate for Governor David Garcia.
We're sick and tired of what was happening to our country, what was happening to our state, and stood up and did something about it. And I want to thank every single one of you for doing just that. Yes. Yes. You took action despite uncertainty. You went out and inspired others, and in my opinion, that is the mark of true leadership. I am moved to be in the room with all of you and honored to have been on this journey with you. Folks, we came up short tonight. And I called Governor Doug Ducey to congratulate him on his reelection and to wish him the very, very best with the number of important issues facing our state.
To the people of Arizona, I am humbled by the confidence you have put in me. It is my honor to continue working on your behalf, and I am truly energized by the work that lies ahead. Thank you.
You just won the race. Tell me about what you're feeling right now.
I'm feeling great right now. My wife and I worked incredibly hard with my campaign team. We fought for every single vote. We went hard at every vote. Democrat, Independent, and Republican. And the overwhelming win we got tonight shows that each of those folks responded. We got an overwhelming number of Republican votes here tonight. So I'm feeling really good. Our message, which is I'm going to work in a bipartisan way, a results-focused leader. That's what I did as mayor. People can trust me. That was our message, and obviously it resonated very well with the voters tonight.
Right, and you were mayor for many years, and you made the leap to go out for this race. Tell me about that move.
Well, look, I love being mayor of the city of Phoenix. It's a great job in public service. But you know what? I often complained about Congress, and finally I said, I got to stop complaining. I'm going to do something about it. So when this opportunity came up, I jumped right in. I want to be a leader on infrastructure investment because Washington hasn't done enough on that. I want to be a leader on comprehensive immigration reform. And we need to be leaders on the issue of climate change because the president has taken us away from that. And we need to fight with people with pre-existing conditions and get dark money out of our elections.